He found her again, his former waitress, the woman who vanished after one reckless night. Only now, she wasn't alone. In her trembling arms was a baby boy with his eyes. When Damien Caruso, the most feared man in Boston, demanded to know the truth, Aria Moreau's world shattered. One lie could protect her son. One confession could destroy everything she'd fought to keep safe. As his power closed around her like a shadow, she faced the one man she could never outrun, the father of her child, the man whose touch she still remembered and whose world could burn them both. Was it love, or a sentence she could never escape? Before we begin, if you believe that sometimes love is the most dangerous truth of all, make sure to subscribe. It's free and helps us share more stories from Desire Tales. The secret I couldn't hide. The espresso machine hissed and steamed behind me, its familiar sound a comfort in the chaos of the Friday night rush at Bellissimo. I balanced 3 plates of pasta along my arm, the scent of garlic and basil making my stomach growl. 6 months back at work after maternity leave, and I still wasn't used to the pace again. "Table 7, Aria," Marco called from the kitchen. I nodded, blowing a strand of dark hair from my face. My feet ached in the sensible black shoes I'd worn for my double shift. Unlike the other waitresses with their perfect makeup and flirtatious smiles, I couldn't afford the luxury of discomfort, not with a 14-month-old waiting at home. As I set the plates down for the young couple at table 7, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirrored wall. Exhaustion etched around my eyes, my once vibrant features dulled by sleepless nights and endless worry. At 26, I looked at least 5 years older. "Anything else I can get you?" I asked, summoning a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The woman, draped in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, barely looked up. The Parmesan, fresh, not pre-grated. I was turning to fetch it when the front door opened and the restaurant's ambient chatter dropped to a murmur. It always happened this way when he arrived. Like animals sensing a predator, people instinctively lowered their voices, their eyes darting nervously before fixing firmly on their plates. I didn't need to look to know it was him. The air itself seemed to change, charged with danger and something else I refused to name. But my eyes betrayed me, drawn to him like a moth to flame. Damien Caruso, owner of this restaurant and 3 others across the city. Officially, a successful businessman. Unofficially, the head of one of the most powerful crime families in Boston, the father of my son. He moved with the casual confidence of a man who feared nothing and no one, his charcoal suit tailored to his broad shoulders, making even his simplest movements seem like a display of power. 2 men flanked him, one older with salt and pepper hair, whom I recognized as his consigliere, the other younger, with watchful eyes constantly scanning the room. My hands trembled as I retreated to the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. In 14 months, I'd managed to avoid him almost entirely, a miracle considering he owned the restaurant. But I'd switched to day shifts after my brief vacation to have the baby, only picking up night shifts when I heard he was out of town. Tonight was supposed to be safe. Marco had assured me Damien was attending some gala across town. "Aria." Marco's voice startled me as I entered the kitchen. The head chef's face was grim. "Mr. Caruso is asking for you." Ice flooded my veins. "Me? Why?" Marco shrugged, but the sympathy in his eyes told me he suspected more than he let on. "He's in the private dining room. Best not to keep him waiting." My hands clutched the edge of the steel prep table. "Can't Sophia go? I have 3 tables waiting." "Aria."
Marco's tone was gentle but firm. He asked for you specifically. The walk to the private dining room felt like a death march. Each step on the polished floor echoed my rising panic. One night, one mistake. That's all it had taken to shatter my carefully constructed life. And now the consequences weren't just mine to bear. Little Mateo's face flashed in my mind, his dark curls and amber eyes, his father's eyes. I paused outside the heavy oak door, smoothing my black apron with damp palms. A prayer formed on my lips that this was just a coincidence, that he simply wanted to discuss the restaurant, that he hadn't somehow discovered. The door opened before I could knock. The younger bodyguard's face was expressionless as he stepped aside to let me enter. Damien Caruso sat alone at the head of the long table, a single glass of whiskey before him. The room's dim lighting carved shadows under his cheekbones, highlighting the strong line of his jaw. At 38, he was in his prime, dangerously handsome in a way that made women forget the rumors that followed him like shadows. Aria. My name in his mouth sounded different. The Italian pronunciation rolled off his tongue like dark honey. It's been a while. I kept my eyes lowered, hands clasped before me. Mr. Caruso, what can I get you for tonight? A soft chuckle. Look at me, Cara. The endearment sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear. Slowly, I raised my gaze to meet his. Those eyes, the exact shade of amber that greeted me every morning when I lifted my son from his crib.
14 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. His voice was calm, but it sliced through the quiet like a blade. That's how long it's been since you disappeared from my night shift staff, since you served me dinner right at this table, accepted my invitation for a drink after your shift, and ended up in my bed. The room seemed to shrink around us. Damien Caruso leaned back slightly, swirling the amber liquid in his glass as though discussing something trivial. Business. A contract. Not the night that had rewritten both of our lives. I needed a change of schedule for personal reasons. Personal reasons? He repeated, one dark brow lifting. Such as having a baby, perhaps. The words hit like a thunderclap. The floor beneath me felt unsteady, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I don't see how my personal life is any of your concern, Mr. Caruso. His expression didn't change, but the air grew colder, heavier. Sit down, Aria. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command, sharp and quiet enough to make my knees give way. I sank into the chair, the cool leather biting through the thin fabric of my uniform. I have a policy of respecting my employees' privacy. What they do outside these walls is their business, unless it becomes mine. He reached inside his suit jacket and pulled out his phone. The movement was deliberate, practiced. He turned the screen toward me. Is this your son? It was Mateo. The photo showed him laughing in Mrs. Petrov's arms, his curls wild, sunlight gleaming off amber eyes that mirrored the man now watching me. A tremor ran through my fingers. How did you... That's not the important question, Aria. Damien's voice softened, but the softness was far more dangerous than any shout. The important question is why your son has my eyes, my mother's chin, and the same birthmark on his shoulder that every firstborn Caruso male has had for 5 generations. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I'd spent over a year outrunning that truth, changing addresses, cutting ties, even working under a new schedule, all for nothing.
Answer me." His tone had steel hidden beneath velvet. "I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered, my throat tight. "Mateo's father was—" "Don't." The single word cracked through the air like a gunshot. "Don't insult my intelligence. It insults yours as well, and I've always thought you were smarter than this." Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to blink. "What do you want from me?" Damien leaned forward, his forearms resting on the table. The faint scent of cedar and spice filled the air, pulling me backward in time to that night, the night when danger had felt like desire, when I'd believed the warmth in his voice instead of the warnings in my head. "The truth would be a good start," he said quietly. "Why did you hide my son from me?" The question hung between us like a loaded weapon. I knew what Damien Caruso was capable of, how he dealt with those who betrayed him, how completely he destroyed his enemies. But I also remembered the man behind the legend, the way that his hand had brushed my cheek that night, the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes when he'd spoken of his brother's death. "I was afraid," I admitted, finally, my voice barely a breath. "Of me?" I swallowed hard. "Of your world, of what it would mean for my baby to be part of it." Then, after a beat, I lifted my gaze to his. "And yes, of you, of what you might think that I planned it, that I wanted your money, or—" A sharp knock interrupted us. The older bodyguard appeared at the door. "Sorry, boss. Janelli is here, says it's urgent." Damien's jaw tightened, his eyes never leaving mine. For the first time, I thought I saw a flicker of something like regret. "Wait here," he said, rising to his full height. "This conversation is far from over." The moment the door shut, I could finally breathe, but my lungs refused to fill. The low hum of the air conditioning became deafening. Every tick of the wall clock pounded against my nerves. He'd left his phone on the table, face down beside the half-finished whiskey. I could still see the faint reflection of Mateo's photo in the dark surface. My pulse thundered. I moved toward the door, testing the handle. Locked. Of course it was. He'd made sure of it. Then I remembered the other door, the delivery hallway behind the dining rooms. I'd seen Marco use it once during a freezer repair. Maybe, just maybe. I crossed the room, my shoes nearly silent on the carpet. My hands shook as I tried the handle. It turned. The same second, my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. A message from Mrs. Petrov. "Where are you? Been trying to call. Mateo has fever, taking him to ER. Meet us there." The words blurred as I read them. My baby. My Mateo. I glanced at the main door again. If Damien came back and found me gone, there would be no running next time. But if I stayed here a second longer, Mateo would be alone, sick and scared. I pressed my palm to the cool metal of the exit handle, whispering a silent prayer. Then I pushed it open. The corridor beyond was dimly lit and smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and cold air. Somewhere behind me, I thought I heard footsteps, slow, measured, like a predator pacing. I didn't wait to find out. My heels clicked once, twice, before I kicked them off entirely and ran barefoot through the narrow hallway, my breath coming in ragged bursts. I had to get to Mateo, and then we had to disappear, because Damien Caruso had found us, and I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that he would never let his son, or me, go again.
The emergency room buzzed with fluorescent lights and quiet desperation. I pushed through the sliding doors, my heart in my throat, still wearing my waitress uniform. The smell of antiseptic stung my nostrils as I frantically scanned the crowded waiting area. "Aurea, over here."
Mrs. Petrov's accented voice called from a corner where she cradled my whimpering son. I rushed to them, my legs weak with relief just to see him. Mateo's cheeks were flushed with fever, his dark curls damp against his forehead. When he saw me, he reached out with chubby hands, his amber eyes, his father's eyes, bright with tears. "Mama!" he cried, and the single word shattered something inside me. "My baby," I whispered, gathering him into my arms. His little body burned against mine. "What happened?" Mrs. Petrov shook her head, worry etched deep in her weathered face. "Fever came very fast. 1 minute playing, next minute burning up. He not want to drink, not want to eat. I tried to call you many times." Guilt stabbed through me. I'd left my phone on silent during my shift and hadn't checked it until that moment in Damien's private dining room. "I'm so sorry. Thank you for bringing him in." I pressed my lips to Mateo's forehead, flinching at the heat radiating from his skin. "Has a doctor seen him yet?" "They take temperature, say wait." She gestured to the packed waiting room. "Many sick children tonight." I sank into a plastic chair, cradling Mateo against my chest as he fussed and whimpered. My mind raced with twin terrors, my son's illness and the man I'd just fled from. Damien wouldn't simply let this go. A man like him, who commanded respect with a glance and ended problems with a word, wouldn't accept being walked out on twice. An hour crawled by. Mateo's fever seemed to climb despite the children's Tylenol the nurse had finally brought. His little face was flushed, his breathing rapid. Each whimper tore at my heart. "Senora Morao?" A nurse appeared with a clipboard. "We can take your son now." Relief washed over me as I stood, but Mrs. Petrov touched my arm. "I go home now. My husband worried." "Of course," I said, squeezing her hand gratefully. "Thank you so much. I'll call you tomorrow." As Mrs. Petrov left, I followed the nurse through double doors into the examination area. The pediatric section was painted with faded cartoon characters, a sad attempt to make the sterile environment less frightening. The nurse directed us to a curtained cubicle. "The doctor will be with you shortly," she said, eyeing my uniform. "Are you coming from work?" I nodded, bouncing Mateo gently as he fussed. "I came straight from my shift." Her expression softened. "Rough night to be a single mom. There's a nasty virus going around. Half the kids in Boston seem to have it." After she left, I paced the small space, murmuring soothing words against Mateo's curls. My phone remained clutched in my hand, screen dark, no calls, no texts. The silence was more terrifying than any threat, because Damien Caruso didn't make threats, he took action. The curtain rustled, and I turned, expecting the doctor. Instead, a man in a suit stepped in, the younger of Damien's bodyguards. My blood froze. "Michi," he said, quietly, his face impassive. "Mr. Caruso is waiting outside." My arms tightened around Mateo. "How did you find me?" A flicker of something, pity perhaps, crossed his face. "There are only 3 emergency rooms within reasonable distance from the restaurant. This was the second one we checked." "Please," I whispered, backing away until I hit the examination table. "My son is sick. He needs a doctor, not—" "The doctor is with Mr. Caruso now. He and I'll be here momentarily." Before I could process his words, the curtain parted again. Damien Caruso entered, followed by a middle-aged woman in a white coat. The small cubicle instantly seemed to shrink, his presence filling every available space. His eyes went immediately to Mateo, his expression changing in a way I couldn't decipher. Something raw and vulnerable flashed across his features before his mask of control returned. "Dr. Abruzzi is the head of pediatrics. She'll examine him now." The doctor stepped forward with a professional smile. "Let's have a look at this little one, shall we?"
I hesitated, caught between fear for my son's health and fear of the man watching us with those penetrating amber eyes.
Arya, Damien said softly. Let her help him. The quiet authority in his voice broke through my panic. I laid Mateo on the examination table, staying close as he whimpered and reached for me. The doctor worked efficiently, checking his temperature, ears, throat, and chest. Mateo screamed when she touched his right ear, confirming what I had already suspected. Ear infection, she announced. Quite severe, with a secondary viral infection causing the fever. Relief made my knees weak. But he'll be okay? Children are remarkably resilient, the doctor assured me. The fever should break within 24 to 48 hours with proper medication, but I'm going to admit him overnight for IV fluids and to monitor that fever. He's showing signs of dehydration. Fear clutched at my throat again. Admit him? I don't have insurance. The words hung between us, a stark reminder of the fragile life I'd been holding together, one hospital stay away from collapse. That's been taken care of, Damien said, his tone brooking no argument. Dr. Abernathy nodded. I'll get the admission process started and order his medications. A nurse will be in shortly to take you to a room. After she left, silence descended on the cubicle. Mateo had exhausted himself crying and now lay whimpering softly as I stroked his damp curls. I could feel Damien's eyes on us, assessing, calculating. You left. His voice was quiet, but edged with steel. You were supposed to wait. I kept my eyes on Mateo. My son needed me. Our son, he corrected. The two words fell like stones between us. Finally, I looked up at him. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, I could see the tension in his jaw, the tightly leashed anger in his stance. But his eyes, when they met mine, held something else entirely. Hurt. Were you ever going to tell me? The question caught me off guard, with its simplicity, its raw honesty. For a moment, I saw past the Mafia boss to the man, a man discovering he had a child who'd been kept from him. I don't know, I admitted. I wanted to at first, but then I heard about what happened to the Moretti family, and His expression darkened. The Morettis betrayed me. They tried to sell information to federal agents that would have destroyed everything my father and grandfather built. They had children. 2 little girls who ended up in foster care when both their parents disappeared. Damien's face became a mask. You think I would harm a child? My own child? No, the answer came instinctively, surprising me with its certainty. Whatever else Damien Caruso might be, I'd sensed that night in his arms that the rumors of his cruelty were both true and incomplete. But your world would harm him. The danger, the violence, the constant looking over your shoulder, that's no life for a child. Something shifted in his expression. And living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a mother working double shifts just to make rent, dependent on the kindness of elderly neighbors for childcare? That's the life you chose for him instead? His words stung, because they contained truth. I'd been so focused on keeping Mateo away from Damien's dangerous world that I hadn't considered what I was denying him. Security, opportunity, a father. The curtain rustled again as a nurse entered with a wheelchair. We're ready to take you to the pediatric ward now. I gathered Mateo into my arms, his little body heavy with exhaustion. As I moved to sit in the wheelchair, Damien stepped forward. I'll carry him," he said, not a request, but not quite a command either. Our eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. Then Mateo stirred, looking up blurrily, his fever-bright eyes finding Damien, widening slightly at the unfamiliar face. For a breathless moment, father and son regarded each other. Then, to my astonishment, Mateo reached out one small hand toward Damien. Something powerful and unnameable passed over Damien's face as he carefully took our son into his arms. Mateo settled against his chest, as if he somehow recognized the man who had given him half of his DNA, his little head finding a place beneath Damien's chin. The sight pierced me. This was what I had feared most. Not that Damien would reject his son, but that the connection between them would be undeniable, unbreakable. That once Damien Caruso held his child, he would never let him go.
Morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, casting thin stripes across Mateo's sleeping face. His fever had broken sometime in the early hours, his little body finally cool to the touch. Relief left me hollow. Exhaustion seeped into my bones as I curled awkwardly in the reclining chair beside his crib. I hadn't meant to fall asleep, not with Damien still in the room. Yet there he was when I opened my eyes, seated on the small sofa, his jacket removed, shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms inked with faint scars. Despite spending the night in a hospital room, he looked immaculate, composed, lethal, unshakable. Only the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw betrayed the passage of time. His eyes met mine, alert despite the early hour. He'd been watching me sleep. His fever broke at 3:17 a.m. The nurse came in twice. You didn't wake either time. I pushed myself upright, wincing at the stiffness in my neck. You stayed all night? Of course. The simple certainty in his voice made my chest tighten. I stood and moved toward Mateo, who slept peacefully, his breathing deep and steady. The ivy line in his tiny hand was secured with bright cartoon tape. I brushed his curls tenderly, drinking in the sight of him. Damien came to stand beside me, his gaze softening. He looks like my brother did at that age. Salvatore was the spitting image of our father, just as I was of our grandfather. The name Salvatore hung between us. I turned slightly, studying his face. You never mentioned a brother that night. A shadow crossed his features. Salvatore died when I was 15, a drive-by shooting meant for my father. The words chilled me. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. His voice was steady, but I caught the small crack beneath. My father changed after that, became harder, more ruthless. He taught me that in our world, love is weakness, because it gives your enemies leverage. I swallowed hard. Is that what you believe? His amber eyes, so much like Mateo's, found mine. I believed it until I saw his face. He nodded toward the crib. Now I understand what my father meant. Love doesn't make you weak, it makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability can be dangerous. That's why I ran, I whispered. I couldn't bear the thought of Mateo becoming that kind of vulnerability, a target. His expression hardened instantly. You think I couldn't protect my own son? I think you have enemies powerful enough to make you post guards outside a hospital room all night, I countered, glancing at the suited man stationed by the door. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Observant. I've had to be. He studied me quietly. You've been running your whole life, haven't you, Arya? Not just from me. His voice was low, steady, but the accuracy cut deep. He wasn't wrong. That night 14 months ago, between whispered confessions and fleeting touches, I'd told him things I'd never shared with anyone. My father's gambling debts, my mother's illness, the scholarship I'd lost trying to care for her. My life hasn't been easy, I admitted, but it's mine. I make my own choices. And what about Mateo's choices? He asked quietly. Where is his voice in all this? The question landed like a blow. I turned away, pretending to adjust Mateo's blanket to hide the sting in my eyes. He was right again. What right did I have to deny my son a father, especially one who clearly wanted him? But what right did I have to expose him to Damien's world, the same one that had killed his uncle, that was built on fear and loyalty paid in blood? A soft knock broke the tension. A nurse entered, cheerful and efficient. "Good news," she said. "Dr. Abruzzi says if he continues improving, you can take him home this afternoon." Home? The word echoed in my chest, hollow. The nurse checked Mateo's vitals and changed his IV bag, chatting pleasantly. "Beautiful flowers delivered to the station for you," she added, eyes flicking toward Damien with curiosity and a hint of unease. When she left, the silence between us returned, charged now with something new. "I have a proposition," Damien said finally, his tone shifting from emotional to businesslike in an instant. "Come stay at my house while Mateo recovers. It's quiet, secure, with a full staff, including a live-in doctor. He'll receive the best care possible." I stared at him. "You want us to move in with you temporarily?" "Until he's fully recovered," he clarified. "After that, we can discuss more permanent arrangements." My spine stiffened. Permanent arrangements? "Mateo is my son. I intend to be part of his life going forward. How that looks is something we need to discuss, but I think we can both agree your current living situation is not ideal." Anger flared through me. "You don't get to walk into our lives after 14 months and start making judgments about how I've raised him. I've done everything to give him a good life." "I know you have." His tone softened unexpectedly, dousing my fury. "I can see how much you love him, Arya. It's written in every sacrifice you've made, every double shift you've worked." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming but not suffocating. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." The sincerity in his voice disarmed me. For 14 months, I'd carried the weight of single motherhood. The exhaustion, the fear, the endless worry that one misstep could bring everything crashing down. The thought of sharing that burden, even with someone like Damien, was dangerously tempting. "I need time to think," I said finally. He nodded once, accepting the non-answer. "The offer stands. For now, I have business to attend to. My driver will take you and Mateo to my house when he's discharged." "I didn't agree to—" "Arya," he cut me off, his voice gentle but unyielding. "Your apartment has no air conditioning. It's August in Boston, and Mateo is recovering from a high fever. Think of what's best for him right now, not your pride." The words stung, because they were true. "1 week," I conceded, my voice barely a whisper. 1 week. Just until he's better." Something like triumph flickered in Damien's eyes, quickly masked by control. "My driver will bring some of your things from your apartment. Is there anything specific you need?" The casualness of his tone, of how effortlessly he had taken charge, was infuriating and disarming. I gave him a short list. Mateo's stuffed elephant, his blanket, my toiletries, a few clothes. Damien made a quick call, speaking in rapid Italian, then hung up. He approached Mateo's crib, his expression softening.
He leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to his son's forehead. "I will return this afternoon." His eyes met mine, amber on amber, intense, unreadable. "Try to rest. You look exhausted." After he left, the room felt too still, too empty, like the calm after a storm you knew wasn't really over. I sank into the chair beside Mateo's bed, brushing my fingers over his tiny hand. 1 week, I whispered, as much to myself as to him. 1 week with Damien Caruso. What could possibly go wrong? The words tasted like a lie.
The drive to Damien's home took us out of the city, through increasingly affluent neighborhoods, until we turned onto a private road lined with ancient oaks. The iron gates opened silently as we approached, revealing a sprawling estate set back from the road. The house itself was a stunning blend of old-world architecture and modern design stone and glass, elegant yet imposing. "This is where you live?" I asked, unable to keep the awe from my voice. A faint smile touched Damien's lips. "One of my homes, yes." The SUV came to a smooth stop in front of the grand entrance. A middle-aged woman in a simple black dress was waiting on the steps. Her demeanor carried both warmth and quiet authority. "Welcome home, Mr. Caruso," she said in a soft Italian accent before turning to me. Her gaze softened at the sight of Matteo in my arms. "And welcome to you both. I'm Sofia, the housekeeper." "Aria," I said, shifting Matteo slightly. "And this is my son, Matteo." Sofia's eyes crinkled with a kind smile. "He looks just like you did as a baby, Mr. Caruso. The same eyes." Damien's expression flickered with something unreadable. Pride, maybe, or something deeper. "Sofia has been with my family since I was born. She'll show you to your rooms while I speak with Dr. Gentile about Matteo's care." "Doctor?" I asked, automatically. "My personal physician. He'll be monitoring Matteo's recovery." The words made my chest tighten. A private doctor, a mansion, a staff waiting in silence for his orders. This was a world far removed from mine, a world of control, precision, and unspoken rules. Sofia led us inside. The entrance hall alone could have fit my entire apartment twice over. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, marble floors so polished they reflected the light like water. Every corner whispered of wealth and old power. Yet there was warmth, too. Fresh flowers in vases, soft light spilling through tall windows, faint traces of cinnamon and cedar in the air. She guided us up the staircase to a suite on the second floor. The bedroom was spacious and elegant, with cream-colored walls, a massive bed, and an adjoining nursery that had clearly been assembled in haste but was nonetheless perfect. A crib, a changing table, toys still in their packaging. My suitcase sat neatly at the foot of the bed. "The bathroom is through there," she said gently, pointing to a door. "Dinner will be at 7, but I can bring something up earlier if you'd prefer. Mr. Caruso thought you might want to rest after the hospital." "Thank you," I managed. The kindness in her tone only made the unreality of everything sink deeper. After Sofia left, I wandered the suite with Matteo in my arms. The bathroom was larger than my entire apartment. White marble, a freestanding tub, and a glass shower that gleamed under soft light. The nursery's window overlooked manicured gardens and what looked like a pool in the distance. Everything here spoke of a life I'd never known, a life of luxury and control. I was laying Matteo down for his nap when a soft knock came at the door. Damien stood there, tie loosened,
his collar unbuttoned. The casual look did nothing to soften the quiet power that radiated from him. "Is everything to your satisfaction?" he asked, his eyes flicking toward Matteo, who was already drifting to sleep. "It's beautiful," I admitted, keeping my voice low. "Too beautiful. This isn't real life, Damien. At least, not mine." His expression turned serious. "It could be." The words hung between us, heavy with implication. I turned away, brushing Matteo's curls. "What exactly are you offering?" He stepped closer, his voice a low rumble. "Everything, Aria, for both of you." My heart stuttered. "And what would you expect in return?" His eyes darkened. "That's the question, isn't it? What do you think I want from you?" Before I could answer, Matteo stirred and whimpered softly. I moved quickly to his crib, grateful for the interruption. "We'll continue this conversation later," he said, his tone quieter now. "Rest. You're safe here." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Safe. The word echoed in my mind as I stared around the lavish suite. In Damien Caruso's world, safety came with strings attached, strings woven from silk and steel, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the longer I stayed, the harder they would be to untangle.
Days at Damien's estate fell into a rhythm that both soothed and unsettled me. Matteo recovered quickly, his laughter returning with each sunrise, his curiosity boundless in the vast corridors of the mansion. He crawled through the polished halls, pulled himself up on ornate furniture, babbling at every new discovery. Sophia doted on him like a grandmother, while Dr. Gentile came each morning to check his progress. Everything about this place, the chef preparing perfect meals, the quiet guards patrolling unseen, whispered safety. Yet the safety itself felt like a cage lined with gold. And then there was Damien. Despite what I'd feared, he didn't try to dominate my every move. He observed instead, quietly, intently, learning Matteo's routine, his favorite toys, his sleepy babbles before nap time. He scheduled his meetings around Matteo's naps and dinners, and every evening, just before dusk, he appeared at the nursery door like clockwork. By the fourth day, I caught myself waiting for the sound of his footsteps. That evening, the sky burned with streaks of gold and crimson. I stood on the terrace outside my suite, watching the sunset wash over the manicured gardens below. The air smelled faintly of sea salt and rosemary. For a rare moment, my mind was quiet. Then I heard him. "Wine." Damien's deep voice broke the silence, smooth as the dusk itself. I turned. He stood in the doorway holding 2 glasses. His jacket was gone, sleeves rolled to his forearms, top buttons undone. The fading sunlight struck the amber in his eyes, making them look almost molten. He crossed the terrace and handed me a glass. "You look like you could use it." I hesitated, then accepted. "Thank you." We stood side by side, the silence between us as fragile as glass. "Matteo tried to say Sophia's name today. It came out as Fia, but she was delighted." A rare smile touched Damien's lips. "She's always wanted grandchildren. My father's business made that difficult. Few of us marry, fewer have children." "Because of the danger," I said softly. He didn't deny it. "Because of many things." A breeze moved through the terrace, tugging a loose strand of my hair. Damien's gaze followed the motion before he looked back toward the horizon. "Our week is almost up, and I still don't know what happens next." His body went still beside me. "And what do you want to happen?" "This isn't our world, Damien.
Beautiful as it is, dangerous as it might be, it's not where we belong. Where do you belong then? In that apartment with the leaking faucet, working double shifts while your son is raised by an elderly neighbor, struggling to make ends meet when I have more than enough for all of us? Each question was a strike of truth. It's not about money, I said, though the words felt thin. Then what is it about, Arya? Damien set his own glass down, stepping closer. Why are you so determined to deny what's between us? There is nothing between us, I said. The lie scraped my throat. There was one night, one mistake. His eyes darkened. Is that what you think Mateo is, a mistake? No, I burst out. Never. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And yet you would deny him his father, his heritage, everything I can give him? I would protect him from your world, I corrected, my voice sharp with fear. You know nothing of my world, he said, a dangerous edge creeping into his tone. I know enough, I shot back. I know your brother was killed in a drive-by meant for your father. I know the Moretti parents disappeared, leaving their children orphans. I know men fear your name in this city. His expression shifted. Anger, pride, pain, then hardened into something cold. Yes, they fear me, and that fear keeps those I care about safe. He moved closer, close enough that the air between us thickened. Do you think I haven't had men watching your apartment since the day I discovered Mateo's existence? Did you never wonder why your neighborhood, one of the roughest in Boston, seemed to leave you alone? Why no one bothered the single mother with the beautiful baby boy? Shock rippled through me. You... what? He didn't flinch. That wasn't luck, Arya. That was me. I stepped back, heart pounding. That's an invasion of privacy. A humorless smile curved his lips. No, that's what it means to be a Caruso, to protect what's ours by any means necessary. We are not yours, I said, even as something deep inside me wavered. Aren't you? His voice dropped lower, quieter, more dangerous. Mateo carries my blood, my name, whether you've given it to him or not. And you. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek with unexpected tenderness. You've carried a piece of me since that night. I should have stepped back, but my body betrayed me. My breath hitched. The memory of that night flooded back, the low music, the scent of cedar and whiskey, his voice murmuring my name in Italian. I was afraid. Not just of your world, but of how I felt about you. His thumb traced my lower lip, slow and deliberate. Someone like you, a woman of uncommon strength, a mother who would do anything to protect her child, a survivor who's faced every hardship life could throw and remained standing. His eyes burned into mine. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world, Arya? How valuable? The air between us felt electric, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Then Mateo's cry cracked through the tension. The baby monitor on the terrace table came alive with his small, frightened voice. I should check on him, I said quickly, stepping away. Damien nodded, but his eyes didn't leave me. We're not finished with this conversation. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. As I slipped back into the nursery, my pulse still racing, I watched Mateo twist in his sleep, his tiny face scrunched. I tucked the blanket around him and stroked his hair until he calmed. Through the half-open door, I caught a glimpse of Damien standing on the terrace, framed against the darkening sky. Silent, unmovable. A man forged from shadow and control. And yet, for the first time, I realized he wasn't just dangerous, he was haunted. 1 week. That was all I'd agreed to. But standing there, heart pounding, I understood that a week might not be enough to escape the gravity of Damien Caruso.
I stepped closer, my breath catching. It was a visual history of the Caruso family. Dante's ancestors, his father, his brother, his younger self. And then, heartbreakingly, a smiling boy with the same amber eyes, Salvatore. Photo after photo told their story. Childhood, loss, empire. Damien growing colder with every passing year, his father disappearing from the pictures altogether. Then my gaze fell on a smaller frame on the desk. It was me. Me and Damien, captured that night 14 months ago. Me laughing at something he'd said, him looking at me like I was something he couldn't quite believe was real. My heart twisted. I hadn't known anyone had taken that photo. Behind the desk, another door stood slightly ajar. I hesitated, then pushed it open, and gasped. A nursery. Fully furnished. Perfect. Waiting. A crib. A rocking chair. Toys still in their packages. On the wall hung a framed photo of Matteo taken months ago, one I'd kept on my phone. His amber eyes sparkled, his smile pure sunlight. He'd built this for his son. A sound behind me made me turn sharply. Damien stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He'd changed into dark jeans and a shirt, casual but precise, every inch of the man who controlled his world by silence alone. I had it built the night I found out about him, he said quietly. I swallowed. How long have you been watching us? Since the hospital confirmed your pregnancy, 3 weeks after you disappeared. He walked forward slowly. I didn't know for certain he was mine until I saw the photos my men obtained at 3 months. Those eyes, he trailed off, glancing at the picture on the wall. There was no doubt then. And you just waited? I needed to be sure. Not just that he was mine, but that I was worthy of being his father. The admission stunned me. I don't understand. He exhaled, eyes shadowed. My father became a monster after Salvatore died. Cold, ruthless. He cared for nothing but revenge and power. I swore I'd never become him. But this life changes you. I needed to know I could still feel something before I claimed my son. Silence stretched between us, fragile, real. Finally, I asked softly, "And what did you discover?" His eyes found mine, haunted, burning, that I could still feel everything for both of you. My breath caught. I'd seen Damien, powerful, furious, protective, but never like this, stripped bare, human. I heard you earlier, Damien, talking about the Colombians, about the Garza family. That part of your life terrifies me, Damien. Not for myself, for Matteo. He nodded slowly. My world is dangerous. I won't lie about that. But it's changing. The old ways, my father's ways, are dying out. What I've built is different, more legitimate. The violence you heard tonight, that's the exception, not the rule. Can you promise me that Matteo will never be touched by it? My voice trembled. That he'll never be in danger because of who his father is. He stepped closer, closing the distance between us. His hands, warm and steady, took mine. He said, low voice, I can promise you this. I will burn this world to the ground before I let any harm come to him or to you. The words hit me like a heartbeat. Terrifying, but true.
I thought of you every day. Every time I looked at Mateo's eyes, every time he smiled, I saw you. But I was afraid of wanting you, of needing you. Stay, he said simply, not just for Mateo, for yourself, for us. His hand came up, cupping my face with breathtaking gentleness. He said, I'm not asking you to love me, not yet. I'm asking you to give us a chance to become what we could be. A family. The word hit something deep inside me. A family. I'm scared, I admitted. So am I. I've faced down rival families, federal agents, betrayals from within my own circle, and none of it frightens me like the thought of failing you and Mateo. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his chest. His arms came around me, solid and sure. One step at a time, I murmured. Together, he said, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. For a long moment, we stood there in silence, surrounded by the ghosts of his past and the fragile promise of a future neither of us had dared to imagine. Outside, the night wind swept through the Caruso estate, carrying the faint echo of power and the beginning of something dangerously close to redemption.
The house was quiet that night, too quiet. The kind of silence that hummed with things unspoken. After putting Mateo to bed, I lingered near his crib, watching the rise and fall of his tiny chest. The soft sound of the baby monitor pulsed beside me. Outside, the wind brushed the tall windows with a sigh. For days, I had almost convinced myself that this world, this mansion, this rhythm was safe. That maybe Damien's promise of peace wasn't just an illusion. But deep down, I knew better. And then, I heard it. Male voices downstairs. Raised, urgent, dangerous. One of them was Damien's. His usual calm tone was replaced with something sharper, hard as steel, cold as winter. I froze, then crept to the door, pressing it open just enough to hear. Unacceptable, Damien was saying, his voice low but filled with lethal restraint. I made myself perfectly clear. Another man, nervous and breathless, responded, The Colombians are restless, boss. They say the delay is costing them money. And I said I needed a week. 1 week. No business, no meetings, no problems. With respect, Mr. Caruso, the man said carefully, they don't care about your personal situation. They want the shipment cleared, or they'll find someone else who can do it. A long, dangerous pause followed. Even from upstairs, I could feel the air thicken. Tell them, Damien said finally, his voice quiet and deadly, that if they so much as think about working with anyone else in my territory, what happened to the Gaza family will look like a children's birthday party in comparison. The words chilled me to the bone. That calm, measured tone more terrifying than shouting. This was the side of him the city feared, the man behind the empire built on silence, loyalty, and blood. The same man whose arms had cradled my son. I stepped back, heart pounding, shutting the door quietly. My legs felt weak. For days I'd let myself only see the tender side of Damien, the man who'd watched over Mateo's recovery, who'd stood beside the crib like a sentinel. But this was the truth I couldn't ignore. Damien Caruso was dangerous, not just to his enemies, but to anyone who got too close. I returned to Mateo's crib, brushing his curls with trembling fingers. He stirred slightly, mumbling in his sleep. Shh, I whispered, my throat tight. It's okay, baby. Mama's here. But I wasn't sure I believed it. Because I could feel it, the tension in the air, the danger humming through the mansion's walls like electricity.
Hours passed, though I didn't sleep. Every creak of the old house set my nerves on edge. I half expected to hear gunfire or shouting at any moment. Instead, there was only silence, until a soft knock came at the door. Sophia's gentle voice broke through. "Mr. Caruso asked me to tell you he's been called away on urgent business. He may not return until late tonight." I nodded faintly. "Thank you, Sophia." She hesitated before handing me a small envelope. "He also asked me to give you this." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the envelope. My name, Arya, was written in Damien's bold handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single key and a short note. "Third floor, east wing. Last door, on the left. If you want to understand, go tonight, after Matteo is settled. D." My pulse quickened. Understand what? His business? His past? The world I feared? Curiosity warred with dread, but I knew one thing for certain. If Damien Caruso had left me a key, it wasn't by accident. He wanted me to see something. I glanced at Matteo. He slept soundly, the faint rise and fall of his chest steady under the nightlight's glow. I made my decision. By 8 p.m., he was fast asleep. I asked Sophia to keep an ear on the monitor, claiming I needed a bath. Instead, I slipped out of the room, the cool marble floor silent beneath my bare feet. The east wing was darker than the rest of the house, unfamiliar, unused. The air smelled faintly of cedar and dust. The walls here were lined with portraits, men with the same amber eyes, the same severe expressions. The Caruso lineage, staring down through generations. At the end of the corridor, I found it. A heavy wooden door, unmarked and unassuming. The key turned smoothly in the lock. I pushed it open. Light spilled across the room, soft, warm, revealing something I hadn't expected. A study. Polished mahogany, leather-bound books, framed photographs. And on the far wall, pictures, dozens of them.
The night had stretched into dawn before I realized how long we'd stood there in that quiet nursery Damien had built for a son he'd never met until now. The horizon outside the tall windows glowed with the first hint of morning, soft and uncertain. It felt symbolic, like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for whatever came next. We didn't speak for a while. We didn't need to. The silence between us had shifted, no longer tense, but fragile, alive. I pulled away slightly, searching his eyes. What happens now? He looked at me with that unreadable calm that only Damien Caruso could wear, then spoke softly, truthfully. "Whatever comes, we face it together." That word, together, settled deep inside me, burning through every fear I had left. For so long I'd run from him, from his world, from the possibility of a life I didn't believe I deserved. But now, with Matteo asleep in the next room, his tiny heartbeat echoing through the monitor, I knew what my choice had to be. The past could no longer define me, and the future, ours, had already begun. Morning light spilled across the nursery floor, turning everything gold. I glanced toward Matea's crib and smiled faintly. He stirred in his sleep, as if sensing what I was about to decide. I turned back to Damien. He was watching me carefully, almost afraid to hope. "I'll stay," I whispered. His eyes softened, but his voice remained low and sure. "Not because I asked you?" "No," I said, "because I want to, because Matteo deserves his father. And maybe," I hesitated,
Maybe I deserve this too. Something in him broke then, the unflinching control, the quiet restraint. His hand came up, brushing my cheek, thumb tracing my jaw with reverence. I will spend the rest of my life proving you're right, he said. I smiled through the tears that blurred my vision. That sounds dangerously close to a promise. It is, he murmured. When his lips found mine, it wasn't the hunger of that first night, it was something deeper, quieter. A kiss that tasted like redemption. Outside, sunlight broke fully across the estate, flooding the room with warmth. The shadows that had haunted us both seemed to fade, burned away by something stronger. Love. Because sometimes the most dangerous path is also the one that leads you home. And as Damien's arms tightened around me, as our son slept peacefully between two worlds, one of darkness, one of hope, I knew this was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of everything. Because sometimes the most dangerous path is also the one that leads to everything you never knew you wanted, everything you never dared to dream you deserved. My favorite part was when Damien finally admitted, I will burn this world to the ground before I let any harm come to him or to you, proving that even the coldest heart can still choose love over power. What was your favorite moment of redemption in her story? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear which scene stayed with you the most. Don't miss more powerful stories of forbidden love, second chances, and the dangerous kind of devotion that changes everything. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next tale from Desire Tales.